Hey my sweet friends, welcome back to my channel and happy Wednesday to everyone. I hope you're having a great week so far. It is very rainy today, so I've just been tucked in my shop working on this project. It was inspired by our tutorial from last Wednesday. We created a book with some really awesome bags that I had found at Amazon. And so I know you guys are thinking, well, that was a really great design. I don't know why you want to mess with it. Well, there's many reasons why you want to build on a good design. If you want to change the functionality, maybe you want to include some interactive elements or increase the real estate so you'll have more room to finish your book. You want to use your materials more frugally so that you're creating less offcuts and waste, or just change the dimensions and the size to get a fun new look from a design that you already have mostly worked out. So that's what I did for this book. I love these colors, these beautiful boho inspired patterns and images. So I added flip pages to this, and I was able to do that because we increased the space in the spine. So this is going to give us plenty of room to add all of those special memories. I've got two inserts for each of the pockets, and they are folding, so that also adds a lot of extra space. And then, as you can see, we did include some beautiful photo mats with flowers. So if you are interested in seeing this version of our paper bag mini album, then stick with me and we'll make it together. So for this project, we're going to be working with that same paper bag that I picked up from Amazon. I will link that in the description if you're interested in checking it out. We're still going to be using 4 bags for this book, but we're going to be changing the size of it. So all of the measurements are going to change, but it's going to be the same basic process of putting the core of this base together. So the first thing we did was to flip it over and fold that back onto itself. So you have the bottom folded back over, and get a good crisp crease on that will help you to see better when it's time to line it up. So we're going to bring that crease right to our scoreboard, and I'm just lining it up with one of the grooves so that I can measure over. And so I want to add 1/4 of an inch for this portion, and that will help us to build in more space for our finished album. We're going to be able to add more paper layers and all the fun stuff. So now what we have is just 1/4 of an inch of that spine, and I'm going to bring in my guillotine paper cutter for this again. I just really want to get a good even cut on that and a nice clean cut on the edge. So my finished book is going to be 5 inches wide, and that means I want to line up my score line with the 5 so that once I have it folded, this measurement will be part of the back. And so the full page size needs to be 5, and I've got that nice and even across the top. And I'll just go ahead and remove the excess. And you can see that gave me a nice crisp cut there on the edge. So we're done with both of those big tools. I can get them out of the way. I'm going to come in and give a good fold to that score line just so that we can reinforce where that is. When we made our original book, I shared how I added the adhesive. It's only going around the side and the bottom because this inner portion is going to be a pocket. So we're going to continue on that same process as the first book, and we're also going to be using that 2-stage adhesive process because I really want this to be well secured. So first is double-sided adhesive tape, and then a line of this Tombow that will help to hold the portions together while the glue sets up. So the next thing you want to do is bring in 2 of these together and line that up right across the top of what will be the pocket. That's the easiest way to get everything straight and square. And you can just go ahead and press this for a bit so that you're going to get a good contact for those adhesives to set up. So this is going to be one portion or one signature, and we're going to bring 2 of these together. So I've already got my other portion prepared here, and we're going to go ahead and use that same double adhesive combo. I think the hardest part of this is keeping your hands out of the glue, but it is pretty easy to get that lined up. Just join your corners and your side and bottom, and that will get everything exactly where you want it to be. Press that again. So it is tempting to think that because we added 4 1/4-inch portions to the back that you would only need a 1-inch spine, but there is an additional amount of bulk here with the bag portions that were folded. So our spine is just going to be a little bit wider. For this book, just like the last one, I do want to give it a nice sturdy cover, and that will help it to be more weighty and substantial. So I've got my piece of 110-pound cardstock here, and I have cut this to be 6 1/8 by 5 1/4. Remember, we're building in that extra amount for the spine. And then I did score it at 2 and then at 3 1/4. So this is going to be the back part, and I put my adhesive on here for the double-sided tape. I'm just going to come in and bring that Tombow in. So this will look similar to how we finished the cover for the previous book, and I just find that it's a little bit easier to stand this on end. I hope this will stay in focus kind of a little bit so that you can see, but it's hard to say when you bring things so close to the camera. So I'm just really bringing those score lines together and keeping it flat on the surface of my table so that I get that lined up exactly where I want along the outside. And you can even go ahead and press that in a bit when your pages are folded over. So for our previous kind of folios, we would add adhesive to here, but we don't want to do that for this book because there is a lot of movement in the back. So we want to build in enough room for those pages to function properly. And so now that we've got the first portion on, let's go ahead and do the same process for the back. This is going to give it a nice, clean, finished look and give us something to adhere the finished pattern paper and cardstock to so that we can have a nice looking spine as well as the cover. So I'm just going to crease this and bring that back up here, move that into position and press that into place. So now we have that nice spine added. I'm going to want to add those extra portions to the front and back cover as well because that will help it to be very sturdy. Our paper for this is still going to be 110-pound cardstock. It is 6 1/8 inches high by 10 inches wide. I scored it at 5, so now we're going to have a finished page size of 5 inches wide. And I put a little bit of my tape on there, followed by the Tombow. So we're just going to be adhering that on the inside first so that I get my score lines lined up, and then I'll take the tape from this side as well, add that Tombow, and then fold that over and capture all of those layers in between that nice sturdy cover. I'm going to repeat that process for the back. So I'll just go ahead and keep working along, and I'll speed that up and I'll catch up with you when I have that finished. So here is basically where we left off for our first album, and now I want to bring in the changes that will make this a very different kind of mini album. So one thing that we did, remember, was add space to the spine so that we can add more layers. So we've got to add more places to add those layers, and so I've got a couple of full-size flip pages planned, and for these I did switch to the 65 pound weight cardstock just to eliminate a little bit of that bulk. And so for these, they are going to be 6 1/8 inch high by 10 inches wide and scored at 5. And same process with the 2 kinds of adhesive. I have 4 of these prepared, so once I got the first one in, I'll just work through adding the remaining pages. So this will be a flip out, so I want to have my book folded open and then bring my corners together here so that the page will be lined up perfectly with the outside. So once this opens, you're going to get that full page flip. So I've got another one planned for this side of this section, and then 2 for the next section as well. So I'll just keep working, and then I'll add a little bit of music for you to enjoy, and I'll check back in when I have this portion all set. Okay, that is our 4 flip pages added. You can see it's already starting to bulk up nicely. And so because I have already added quite a lot of extra real estate with these full-size flips, I'm not going to add tabs to this side as I did in my original book, but I do want to kind of corral that bulk. So I thought about doing a adhesive and just sealing this off, but I think it would be nice to leave a little bit of flexibility in how that could be finished. So maybe at a later date you could use these as pockets, and they would not work if they were glued together. So I'm going to bring in just a like a card or a folded insert to kind of keep these compressed. And I'm going to stick with my 65-pound weight cardstock, but this one is only cut to be 6 inches high, and that's just so that it will slide into that bag. And it's still going to be 10 inches wide and scored at 5 so that it will slide into that portion where the bag is open and kind of just contain that. And so I didn't want to put any adhesive on once again, so I'm just going to insert that along the outside of those bags and just slip that into place, and that will hold it together. This could be temporary, or you could just keep it like this. But if you wanted to alter that in the future, you could add some additional things. But once again, that does give us a nice finished edge here, and that's what you want because that will make it more sturdy. Okay, so that is where we left off for the changes up to this point. We're going to bring in another change a bit further on, but this is the base now, similar to the first one with a few added adjustments and then a lot more real estate. So I have already prepared another book, and we're going to begin finishing that with our cardstock and the pattern paper. For my book today, I'm going to be using this Humble Abode paper pad. This is a DCWV, and I picked this up from Joann's. It has a really pretty boho inspired palette with stylized flowers, and there's even some foils and some doggos and some little cats. And so I will be using this paper pad quite a lot, but I enjoyed the combination of the softer, pretty colors with the more stylized images. And this is very nice thick paper, so if you pick this up, you will be very happy. So for the purpose of assembly, this is going to look a lot like our first book, but because we changed the measurements for the cover, we do have to change the measurements for the inside as well. So I'm just going to cover those real quickly, and then I will work through that assembly process. I'll speed it up for you and give you some music, and then I'll check back in with you in a bit. So the pattern paper for all the pages that are the full-size pages, all the flips, as well as the front and back cover, has a cardstock measurement of 6 by 4 7/8 and a pattern paper measurement of 5 7/8 by 4 3/4. So you're going to need that all throughout. And then when you get to the pocket, it is going to be 6 inches by 3 3/4 for the cardstock, 5 7/8 by 3 5/8 for the pattern paper, and this will cover the pockets. Okay, I could have probably kept that in real time because it goes just that fast. Once you got all of your paper layers cut and put the adhesive on, it goes pretty quickly. So we've got our flip pages, here's our pocket, and here is another flip page. So 2 more changes from our original book, and that is because we have a little bit of extra room there, we can add some inserts that are folded. This is going to give us even more space to add our pictures and our journaling, especially when you use a lighter, less contrasting pattern. You can write directly on this. So I finished the front and the back of this insert because I don't want to add too much bulk to the pockets, but I am going to add 2. So they are identical, and I'll put them together back to back in that pocket so you can pull them out separately and have a lot of additional space to finish when you're working on this book to add the pictures and the journaling. So I'll slide one in here, and then the other goes in as well, back to back. And so now we have additional things to flip and interactive parts, which makes it fun. So as I mentioned previously, I decided not to add the tabbed inserts, allowing a little bit of extra room for a little bit more detail and fun stuff. And so I've decided to include like a photo mat or a photo frame, and that's just a scalloped rectangle die cut, and then I added my pattern paper on with the same cardstock that I've used throughout, and I alternated the scale of the pattern. So I've got that geometric with the floral, and then I've got a stripe and a dot, and so it doesn't look too busy, and I kept the same color combination. I pulled that from that pattern paper as well as my cardstock color, because once I see that it's all here and I like it, I know it will all work together. So I'm just going to add this to the front of the flip page. I don't want to add too much bulk now for the inside because I do want there to be room to finish it off with all of the fun stuff. So here is that pretty photo frame or photo mat, if that's what you want to call it. And so this is just going to be one special picture that is highlighted on the cover. So now I can bring in a pretty little floral arrangement, and I did create this with my new Be Bold Blooms die set that I got from Spellbinders, and I really like this kind of arrangement because it's mostly flat, so I can still get a lot of those details that I want without adding a huge amount of bulk. And this is another place that you can use your offcuts to create flowers that will coordinate very well. And so I just have a pretty blue flower to anchor this, and it has a glittery center to finish it off, and then paired it with that light peach and just a couple of leaves. Nothing fancy like twine or netting, or for the inside I want to be able to close this up when it's done, and that's just going to kind of wrap that corner in. So I'm going to go ahead and add that with the hot glue because I do want that to be well secured, but I think this would be a very pretty page to have a special picture on. So now we've got that first flip. We've got our pretty frame. There are 2 folded inserts in the pocket. And then the next set of pages is basically going to be the same. I just alternated that floral with the check so that I have a very similar but different looking combination. And then I went with that pretty flower arrangement again, just to kind of enhance that page in. So this is nice and thick now. I've also got the 2 inserts like on the first set of pages. So I'll just go ahead and tuck those in. The insert itself is going to be 5 by 8.5. I scored it at 4 1/4. The card stack is 4 7/8 by 4 1/8. The pattern paper is 4 3/4 by 4. And so I just put that on the inside and the front to decorate those inserts. And that will definitely fill this in and add a huge amount of bulk. See how thick that is now? It is so heavy and sturdy and nice. So like I mentioned, I did use the same patterns for the back and the same measurements. This was another great place to use my offcuts. And then I have already finished the spine. This is the hardest piece for me to get on to get centered. I'm not sure exactly why, but I did that off camera. So the spine itself is going to be 6 by 1 1/4 for the cardstock. The pattern paper is 5 7/8 by 1 1/8, and that gives me all those nice pretty borders. So here's where you want to bring in your trim if you're going to add that. This is a beautiful blue topaz diamond satin from Really Reasonable Ribbon. I really love the combination of this blue. I pulled that right from the floral page, and this particular ribbon, when you cut it at an angle, it is not going to fray. So you do want a generous length here so that you can tie a big, beautiful bow. And I like to position this with a little bit of my tape just to tack it in place. It will be well secured between the cover and the base, so this just holds it in place temporarily. Now, you guys have seen me make covers a million times, and this is not very different from the previous one, so I just went ahead and put those layers together. This again is offcuts from those larger pages, and then I've added a tag. This was one of the cut aparts from the journal card page, and I used a tag die to give it a more interesting shape, as well as to bring in that layering element so that I have room for my pretty doily. And then I've also made my flower arrangements less curvy because I want it to just kind of wrap around that beautiful little typewriter and not cover too much of it. This is a pretty kind of all occasion, non-theme specific cover, and so I think this would work great for any occasion. And I did put some spacers between those layers. So I'll just go ahead and add that now, and that will help to sandwich that trim and keep it secure. Just want to keep all of my nice borders going around and pressing that in pretty well. So last detail I want to do is just to bring in a couple of sequins here on the corner for a little bit of added detail. And so I'll just add 3, and I'll put those on with my Tombow as I do. But this is a good time to ask all of you if you're interested in more variations on this paper bag project. I think that was a lot of fun to come up with some different additions to make this book even more special. And so if you are interested in that, let me know in the comments below. If you liked this tutorial, make sure you give me a big thumbs up. You can find links for all of our social media sites in the description. And if you're not already, I would love for you to subscribe. Don't forget to hit that bell notification so you'll be alerted every time we add new content. And as always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.